In the quiet town of Harrison, where nothing extraordinary ever happened, an alarming headline shook the very core of its 10,000 residents. Local teenager found with eyes gouged out, strange symbols carved on forehead. The date was June 19, 2022. The newspaper, the Harrison Herald, reported it on their front page, creating a tidal wave of horror throughout the community. The incident wasn't just an isolated tragedy, it was the beginning of a series of gruesome events that would turn Harrison into a town of nightmares. It was a Monday morning when Jenna, a 16-year-old honors student at Harrison High, failed to show up for her classes. She had always been punctual, so her absence set off immediate concern. By evening, when her frantic parents reported her missing, search parties were formed. They scoured every nook and cranny of Harrison, but the dense thicket on the edge of town, known locally as the Whispering Woods, seemed the most promising, or rather, the most ominous. Past incidents in the woods were generally limited to teenagers daring each other to spend a night, with tales of eerie whisperings discouraging most. Yet, as Jenna's friends disclosed, it was rumored that she had recently been visiting the woods, curious about its legends. After hours of searching, it was Mrs. Gallagher, a schoolteacher, who stumbled upon a shocking scene. Jenna was lying in a small clearing, her once vivid blue eyes gouged out. Crimson trails ran down her pale face, the aftermath of her struggle. The image that forever imprinted on Mrs. Gallagher's mind, however, was the cryptic symbols carved onto Jenna's forehead. The symbols were intricate, ancient, and seemed oddly familiar, yet no one could discern their meaning. The next day, forensic experts examined the body, but were baffled. There were no fingerprints, no DNA other than Jenna's, and the tool used for the carving was not found. The only unusual discovery was a rare flower, known as Midnight's Bloom, tucked behind Jenna's ear. This flower was not native to Harrison and was known to grow only in extremely cold climates. News of the gruesome murder spread like wildfire. Parents kept their children close, and a curfew was imposed. But what truly set the town on edge were the whispers about other similar incidents from nearby towns, dated a few years back, all victims being teenagers and all bearing those chilling symbols. Among the flurry of discussions, an old town legend resurfaced, speaking of an ancient cult that used the Whispering Woods as their haunting grounds centuries ago. They worshipped a forgotten deity and were rumored to offer eyes as a sacrifice to see the future. As days turned to weeks, the police hit dead end after dead end. Theories about Jenna's murderer ranged from a deranged lunatic to the more skeptical belief of it being the work of the ancient cult. But, as time passed and no new leads surfaced, the case went cold. However, the fear remained, for everyone knew, deep down, that the perpetrator was still out there, possibly watching, waiting for the next opportunity. The weeks after Jenna's murder were eerily quiet. The unease was palpable, a thick tension suffocating the town. Harrison was no longer a place of simple joys, it had transformed into a community living in the shadow of fear. On August 14, 2022, as summer was in its zenith, another alarming event unfolded. A set of videos began circulating on social media platforms, each more disturbing than the last. These videos, though grainy, displayed a series of dark rituals, with hooded figures chanting in an indecipherable language, surrounded by symbols similar to those found on Jenna. The videos were traced back to a user named Seer of the Future. The unsettling part was that each video was geotagged to different parts of the Whispering Woods. Law enforcement, along with tech experts, worked diligently to trace the original uploader, but every lead led to a confusing web of dead ends. But the videos weren't just random acts of terror. Each had a commonality, a brief clip showcasing the terrified eyes of different teenagers, their pupils dilating in fear. The community was in uproar. Were these the next victims? Were they still alive? It wasn't until the third video was released that things became harrowingly clear. The final moments of the video showcased a familiar face, Oliver, another student from Harrison High. The same night, his parents reported him missing. A chilling pattern began to emerge. With the threat now undeniable, local authorities requested assistance from federal agencies. Investigators were stationed at every corner, especially around the Whispering Woods, hoping to catch the perpetrator. But the vastness and unpredictable nature of the woods made it a daunting task. However, in their exploration, they stumbled upon something unexpectedly harrowing. Deep within the woods was a dilapidated hut, the walls of which were covered with clippings from newspapers, all articles detailing past incidents similar to Jenna's. Beside these clippings were scribbles, possibly deciphering the mysterious symbols, leading to a potential connection between the ancient cult and these modern atrocities. But, more disturbingly, in the middle of the hut was a makeshift altar. Around it, on the ground, were several midnight's bloom flowers. Above it, hanging from the ceiling, were numerous glass jars. And within each jar was an eye, preserved flawlessly, each staring blankly, a silent testament to the horror they had witnessed before their untimely extraction. With the discovery of the sinister hut, the town's worst fears were validated. The urgency to capture the cult, or whoever was imitating them, reached fever pitch. However, despite the chilling evidence, no immediate leads emerged from the hut. Yet, the jars with the eyes served a purpose: DNA testing. The hope was to identify any other victims and offer some solace to their distraught families. October 2, 2022, brought a new twist. One of the eyes matched the DNA of a person not from Harrison but from a neighboring town, Willow Creek. This victim, Lydia, had gone missing a year prior and was never found. The revelation widened the scope of the investigation. Realizing they were possibly dealing with a larger network, the federal agencies began collaborating with other jurisdictions, uncovering a series of cold cases over the past decade that matched the modus operandi of the seer of the future. It was a librarian in Harrison, Mrs. Annette, who provided the next significant lead. She discovered an old journal from the 1700s, detailing the history of the cult. The journal belonged to an ancestor of hers, who was said to have been a part of the cult but turned against them. Within its pages were translations of the symbols, indicating they were a form of communication, a prediction of future events as seen through the eyes of the sacrificed. With the translated symbols from Jenna's forehead, a message emerged: the waters will rise. This revelation became eerily relevant when, just a week later, a dam in a neighboring town burst, causing widespread destruction. It was evident now, the cult, or its modern imitators, believed in the power of these predictions and were willing to go to extreme lengths to foresee them. But who were they? December 1, 2022, while monitoring online chatter, an undercover agent identified a potential meetup of cult members. A raid was organized on an old abandoned warehouse in Harrison's industrial district. The scene inside was chilling: a congregation of hooded figures, a large screen displaying the videos from Seer of the Future, and in the center, an operating table with surgical instruments laid out meticulously. A fierce confrontation ensued, leading to the apprehension of most members. Among them, shockingly, were prominent figures of Harrison, a town council member, a school principal, and even a local police officer. Their reason? A deluded belief in harnessing future knowledge for power and control. The aftermath was a town forever scarred, trying to grapple with the betrayal of its trusted members. The victims were remembered, and the hope was to rebuild, to move past the dark chapter of the cult's shadow. But as the final video from Seer of the Future ominously hinted, perhaps the cult's network was more extensive than anyone realized. For in the background of the video, behind the terrified eyes of an unknown victim, was a skyline not of Harrison, but of a major city. Thank you for joining us for this terrifying journey into the heart of Harrison and the shadows of its past. If this tale sent chills down your spine, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below with your thoughts. Stay tuned to Sacred Screams Sanctum for more spine-tingling tales.